Did you know Bogey?
Yes, I knew Bogey.
Yeah.
I don't miss him. No, I mean, I didn't know him that well, but I knew him.
Yeah.
But I didn't see as much of him as I did other people.
Lucille Ball, the queen of comedy, the smiling redhead who made millions laugh, wasn't always sunshine and charm. Behind the camera, there was one man who managed to push her patience past the breaking point. Their clashes weren't just minor disagreements. They were explosions of pride, power, and betrayal that left scars lasting for years. Audiences adored her as the lovable Lucy Ricardo, but off-screen, Ball's perfectionism and sharp instincts for comedy often collided with the egos of Hollywood's biggest names. And when she felt disrespected, she never forgot it. But who was the man she utterly hated? What happened between them that turned working together into pure torment? And why did she remain so cold, even when the cameras stopped rolling? Today, the truth is finally coming to light, and once you hear it, you'll never see her the same way again. Before we dive into the untold stories and shocking feuds of Lucille Ball, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single Hollywood revelation. To the world, Lucille Ball was the unstoppable queen of comedy, radiant, hilarious, and endlessly lovable. She seemed like a woman who had it all, from a groundbreaking television career to a sparkling personality that made every household embrace her as family. Week after week, viewers tuned in to I Love Lucy not just for laughs, but because Lucille felt like a friend, a trusted face they could welcome into their living rooms. That was the magic of her persona, a combination of warmth, wit, and timeless charm. But the Lucille Ball the cameras captured was not the whole woman. Off-screen, she was something entirely different, a relentless perfectionist with razor-sharp instincts about comedy, timing, and production. She was fiercely protective of her craft and unwilling to let anyone, whether co-stars or guest actors, compromise the standard she set. For Lucille, the work wasn't just entertainment, it was legacy. That iron determination, while the secret behind her success, also made her difficult to work with for those who didn't share her vision. This duality defined her career. On one hand, the lovable Lucy Ricardo, who stumbled into misadventures with charm and naivety. On the other, a business-savvy powerhouse determined to run her set with discipline and control. To her fans, she was the embodiment of joy. To her colleagues, she could be intimidating, even ruthless. Some admired her for it, while others resented the way she demanded excellence. And this tension between her public image and private intensity explains why clashes were inevitable. Hollywood may have adored her smile, but many of the men who worked alongside her soon discovered the fire behind it. Lucille could forgive mistakes on camera if they made audiences laugh, but in real life, betrayal and disrespect left wounds that never healed. But this was just the beginning, because while her personality fueled rivalries, it also shaped the relationships that defined her personal life, and none was more explosive than her marriage to Desi Arnaz. When Lucille Ball met Desi Arnaz, it seemed like the perfect Hollywood love story. She was already an established star, elegant and ambitious. He was a charismatic Cuban bandleader, full of charm, energy, and undeniable talent. Together, they looked unstoppable, two fiery personalities drawn together by passion and a shared love of performance. To audiences, their marriage was a dream, the ideal blend of romance and creativity. But behind closed doors, the truth was far more complicated. Their relationship was electric, but that spark wasn't always kind. Love fueled them, yes, but so did jealousy, pride, and fiery tempers. They could be affectionate one moment and at each other's throats the next. Their marriage was a whirlwind, a constant push and pull between devotion and destruction. One of the deepest sources of pain for Lucille was Desi's wandering eye. He was known for his charm, and unfortunately, he used it freely. Reports of infidelity haunted their marriage, leaving Lucille torn between heartbreak and determination to hold her family together. She longed for stability, loyalty, and honesty, but Desi's betrayals cut deeply, leaving wounds that would never fully heal. Yet, despite this anguish, Lucille also depended on Desi in ways few could see. He was her partner not just in life, but in business. Together, they built I Love Lucy, a show that would revolutionize television and cement their place in history. Their chemistry on screen as Lucy and Ricky Ricardo was undeniable, making millions laugh while masking the real storms raging off camera. The tension between passion and pain finally reached its breaking point in 1960, when their marriage ended in divorce. But even then, their story didn't end. They continued working together, raising children, and showing the world a complicated, enduring respect that lingered long after the love affair had burned out. And while their marriage shaped much of Lucille's personal life, it was their shared empire, Desilu Productions, that brought an entirely new battlefield: business. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz weren't just husband and wife. They were business partners who changed television forever. In 1950, they co-founded Desilu Productions, a company that would grow into one of the most powerful studios in Hollywood. Together, they pioneered techniques like the multi-camera setup and rerun syndication, strategies that would transform television into the industry we know today. On the surface, it was a story of triumph. Behind the scenes, however, it was another arena where love, ego, and ambition collided. Lucille was meticulous. Every detail mattered, from the way a joke was delivered to how a show was marketed. She saw Desilu not just as a company, but as her legacy. Desi, by contrast, was more spontaneous, brilliant in his own way, but less rigid. He loved innovation, risk-taking, and the thrill of new ideas. Sometimes clashing with Lucille's structured perfectionism, arguments erupted frequently. Creative control was one battlefield, finances another. Lucy wanted to reinvest profits and maintain stability, while Desi often pushed for bold moves, convinced that bigger risks could bring bigger rewards. Each believed their vision was the one that would carry Desilu forward. Their boardroom debates were as fiery as their living room arguments. What made it more complicated was that every disagreement at work spilled into their marriage, and every fight at home carried over into the office. Running a company while sharing a household blurred the lines between personal and professional in ways neither could escape. And yet their tension created brilliance. Desilu wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. Under their leadership, the studio produced classics like The Untouchables and later Star Trek. Still, the constant tug-of-war left scars. The very company that cemented their place in history also contributed to the erosion of their marriage. But even after the divorce, Desilu remained at the heart of Lucille's story. Taking full control after Desi's departure, she became the first woman to run a major television studio, a trailblazer in a world dominated by men. And while Desilu proved Lucy's strength as a leader, it also added relentless pressure, fueling the on-set tensions that made filming I Love Lucy both legendary and exhausting. The magic of I Love Lucy looked effortless to viewers. Every pratfall, every misunderstanding, every hilarious chase scene felt spontaneous, like lightning in a bottle. But behind the laughter was a grueling process that demanded discipline, long hours, and absolute precision, and no one felt the weight of that more than Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Lucy was relentless when it came to getting things right. She believed comedy wasn't about luck, it was about timing, rehearsal, and attention to detail. If a gag didn't land perfectly, she'd run it again and again until it was flawless. To her, settling for good enough wasn't an option. That perfectionism set the gold standard for sitcoms, but it also created friction on set. Desi, who wore multiple hats as co-star, producer, and bandleader, sometimes found himself overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of it all. He thrived on creativity and improvisation, but Lucy's structure left little room for flexibility. Their different approaches sparked countless arguments. He wanted freedom. She wanted control. And when those battles erupted, everyone on set felt the tension. The production schedule didn't help. Filming in front of a live audience meant there was no room for mistakes. Scripts had to be airtight, performances polished, and technical execution seamless. The pressure cooker environment sometimes turned minor disagreements into major confrontations. Lucy's drive could feel like criticism, while Desi's attempts to lighten the mood sometimes seemed careless in her eyes. Yet, ironically, this very friction was part of what made I Love Lucy extraordinary. The intensity of their behind-the-scenes clashes translated into the chemistry audiences adored. Lucy's manic energy paired with Desi's steady presence created a balance that resonated worldwide. Still, the stress took its toll. As the years went on, the constant grind blurred the line between comedy and conflict. What audiences saw as laughter often came from real tension bubbling just beneath the surface. And if Lucille's perfectionism tested her marriage, it pushed her guest stars even harder. Some, like Richard Burton, would discover just how fiery things could get when they clashed with her on set. In 1965, Lucille Ball welcomed one of Hollywood's most commanding actors onto her show, Richard Burton. Known for his Shakespearean gravitas and acclaimed film performances in Cleopatra and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Burton was the epitome of a serious actor. Pairing him with Lucy's slapstick comedy seemed like a stroke of genius, a meeting of two entertainment worlds. Audiences eagerly tuned in, expecting brilliance. What they didn't see, however, was the battle brewing behind the scenes. Burton had built his reputation on drama, not physical comedy. Lucy, meanwhile, knew exactly how she wanted every gag to land. As the star and driving force of the Lucy show, she often gave notes to her co-stars, guiding them through her carefully crafted comedic rhythm. Burton wasn't used to that kind of direction, especially from someone he didn't see as his equal in dramatic artistry. To him, Lucy's advice felt like meddling. To her, it was simply professionalism. The clash was immediate. Burton bristled at her perfectionism, and Lucy pushed harder to ensure the comedy worked. Their tension reached such a peak that Burton vented in his private diaries, calling her a monster of charmlessness and monumental lack of humor. He admitted that if he'd been drinking at the time, he might have lost complete control. And yet, Burton's view wasn't entirely one-dimensional. Just a few years later, in a different setting, he wrote about seeing Lucy at a dinner party and described her as superb. A born actress, marveling at her resilience and presence even without the glamour of Hollywood lights. This contradiction revealed the truth. Burton may have resented her control on set, but he couldn't deny her power as a performer. The episodes they filmed together remain classics, celebrated for the odd but fascinating chemistry between a dramatic powerhouse and the queen of comedy. Still, the friction behind the laughter was undeniable, proof that Lucy's drive for perfection often left her guests torn between admiration and frustration. And Burton wasn't alone. Just a few years later, another Hollywood legend, Dean Martin, would discover firsthand how demanding it was to share the screen with Lucille Ball. On screen, Fred and Ethel Mertz were America's favorite neighbors, bickering, sarcastic, and endlessly funny. William Frawley's grumpy charm played perfectly against Lucille Ball's wide-eyed antics, creating one of television's most iconic comedic pairings. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the warmth vanished. Off-screen, Lucy and Frawley could barely tolerate each other. By the time he was cast as Fred Mertz, Frawley was already a seasoned Hollywood character actor. He also carried a reputation that was less than flattering. Known for his late nights, drinking habits, and unpredictable temper, Frawley was a man whose personal demons often bled into his professional life. To Lucille Ball, A perfectionist who demanded punctuality, discipline, and respect for the craft, his behavior was infuriating. She expected everyone on set to bring their best. Frawley often gave enough to keep his job, but never more. The result was an icy relationship that became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Lucy was forced to endure him because CBS executives knew he was popular with audiences. He never missed a filming day, never crossed the final line that would have gotten him fired. That meant Lucy was stuck with him, whether she liked it or not. Their interactions were strictly business. Between takes, they spoke only when necessary, and their conversations were short, clipped, and often laced with sarcasm. Frawley, for his part, didn't hide his disdain. He once admitted to a friend, "I respect her talent, but I don't have to like her." The depth of their animosity became crystal clear when CBS floated the idea of a Fred and Ethel spinoff after I Love Lucy ended. Lucy shut it down instantly, refusing to work with Frawley a second longer. The feud followed them until the end. When William Frawley died in 1966, reporters asked Lucy for a statement. Her response was chillingly cold. He was a good actor. Nothing more. No warm memories. No tributes. Just distance. It was a reminder that while Lucy could create television magic with anyone, real life was another story. Still, not every relationship behind the scenes was poisoned by hate. Some were defined by a delicate mix of rivalry and deep affection, like her bond with Vivian Vance. If William Frawley represented Lucille Ball's most notorious feud, Vivian Vance was the opposite: a friend, a confidant, and at times, a rival. Together, they brought Lucy and Ethel to life, creating one of television's most iconic duos. Their chemistry was so natural that audiences believed they were inseparable in real life. But the truth was far more complicated, a bond built on affection, creative tension, and the constant pressure of Hollywood. When Vance was first cast as Ethel, she had doubts. She was younger than Lucy, glamorous in her own right, and worried about being typecast as the sidekick. But Lucy recognized something in her. Vivian wasn't just a supporting player, she was a comedic equal. From the very first episode, her timing was electric. Ethel's grounded reactions balanced Lucy's wild schemes, creating a partnership that became the gold standard for sitcom friendships. Yet, their relationship wasn't without friction. Vance often pushed back against the writers, demanding that Ethel be more than a one-note character. She wanted intelligence, dignity, and a voice. Lucy sometimes bristled at those demands, protective of her own spotlight. And like any close relationship, professional disagreements occasionally spilled into personal tension. But beneath it all was real affection. Away from the cameras, the two women confided in each other, shared their struggles, and supported one another through marriages, divorces, and the relentless grind of fame. Vivian later said that Lucy was like a sister, a sentiment that revealed the depth of their bond. That closeness could be messy at times, but it was genuine, and it showed every time they stepped in front of an audience together. For viewers, Lucy and Ethel were comedy legends. For the women behind the roles, the partnership was both a challenge and a gift. It was proof that Lucy's world wasn't only defined by enemies and feuds. Some relationships, no matter how complicated, were built on loyalty and love. But as much as Lucy valued these friendships, her perfectionism still created clashes, leaving a trail of admiration and resentment wherever she went. By now, one thing is clear: Lucille Ball was not a woman who coasted through life on charm alone. She was a force of nature, demanding, driven, and unwilling to settle for mediocrity. That intensity defined her relationships in Hollywood. Some people adored her for it, while others walked away muttering that she was impossible to work with. In truth, both views were right. Her perfectionism created unforgettable television. The multi-camera system, reruns, the timeless brilliance of I Love Lucy, All of these innovations were the direct result of Lucy's unwillingness to compromise. But the same traits that built an empire also created enemies. Guest stars like Richard Burton and Dean Martin left frustrated. Co-stars like William Frawley nursed long-standing resentment. Even friends like Vivian Vance sometimes felt overshadowed by her dominance. And yet, Lucy wasn't simply harsh or cold. For those who earned her respect, she was fiercely loyal. She supported colleagues she trusted, lifted up friends in moments of crisis, and inspired countless younger performers who saw in her a model of resilience. In a male-dominated industry, she refused to be pushed aside. Instead, she carved out power for herself and demanded the same respect given to her male counterparts. This duality is what made Lucille Ball so fascinating. To audiences, she was the lovable redhead, always bumbling into another hilarious disaster. To Hollywood insiders, she was a shrewd businesswoman, a perfectionist, and, at times, a rival who could be as difficult as she was brilliant. The truth is, Lucy wasn't easy, but greatness rarely is. And as her life unfolded, the pattern became undeniable. Lucille Ball built friendships that lasted a lifetime, feuds that never healed, and a reputation that proved she was far more than just the queen of comedy. But there's still one final question. When history remembers her, will it be for the laughter she gave or for the battle she fought to get there? Lucille Ball's story is one of contrasts. To millions, she was the radiant queen of comedy, the woman who could turn the simplest gag into timeless laughter. But behind the cameras, she was far more complex and innovator, a perfectionist, and someone who often clashed with those who couldn't keep up with her demands. Her feuds with William Frawley, Richard Burton, and Dean Martin revealed a fiery side that audiences never saw. Yet her bond with Vivian Vance and her enduring respect for Desi showed she was also capable of deep loyalty and love. Perhaps that's why her legacy endures. Lucille Ball wasn't just funny, she was fearless. She broke barriers in business, reshaped television, and proved that women could command as much power as any man in Hollywood. So, what do you think? Was Lucy difficult, or was she simply ahead of her time, demanding excellence in an industry that often underestimated her? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed uncovering these untold stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Hollywood revelations.